Okay, we'll continue on our series about priorities, strategies, and goals. We've covered the priorities in the previous version, previous video. Today we're going to talk about strategies and wrap it up with goals. So strategies. Strategy is a big fancy word. A lot of people have a lot of definitions for it. So we'll just make up our own here. But one great quote here, we'll start with Pablo Picasso. Our goals can only be reached through the vehicle of a plan. There is no other route to success. So it's very important. I mean, the perspective, right? We always know but you have to determine where you want to go, how you want to get there in order to be successful. Else, anywhere you go is success. So anyway, strategies. What are they? Well, in the context of priorities, strategies, and goals, strategies are the approach or method that we'll use to accomplish or move towards accomplishing our priority. So it's an approach or a method, right? Very simple. So if my priority is to increase revenue, then my strategies would be my approach or methods that I'm going to use in order to move towards accomplishing that priority. So why do you have them? Well, first of all, it forces your team to define what methods that they're going to use to accomplish the defined priority. And this is where the intellectualization comes in. It's great. We say we want to increase revenue. All right, great. Now how, right? And that's where strategies come in. They're the how of which you're going to execute on this priority. And this is where you got to process what you've learned in the past, what you think you should do in the future, and then really give you a perspective on the success or the likelihood of success that you would have. You'll see a lot of the weaknesses when businesses or functionals are moving forward when you start to say, well, did they accomplish what their goals were? Because a lot of companies and a lot of people go goals oriented, right? They define goals and then they hope really hard. But hope is not a strategy, right? The strategic element of the PSG forces you to say, how will I accomplish this? What are my methods in which I'm going to do that? They aligns readily available resources on what you should be executing on in a daily, weekly, monthly, whatever period you pick. The operative word in that is readily available resources. So when you're defining the strategies for the priorities, go with what you can do today. Because a lot of times you say, well, if a priority is to go to the moon, then we'll say something, like, okay, well, we just need a rocket ship. And so when we get a rocket ship, we'll go. And that doesn't really get us anywhere. We got to go with, if I have a rocket ship, then that might be an appropriate strategy to get to the moon. If I don't have one, then I got to come up with something else, right? Maybe I back off or reduce down. So you don't want to create strategies that are contingent on future success or future resources. What do I have today? Now, you can also create priorities to expand your resources, right? And as you should, right? It should be a part of your innovation priorities. How can I move forward in the future? How can I create resources that I would want to have in the future for future priorities, future strategies? It forces discipline to execute the strategy for the defined priority. This is the most important piece. What is important to priority? How can it be accomplished, the strategy? At the end of the day, we talked about you have people, you have processes, you have technology. Those three are the triumphants of a business, how they come together. The priorities, what's important, the strategies, how I'm going to accomplish it is what brings those pieces together. In a minute, we talk about the goals. We'll be able to come back to those because when I do not execute or succeed on accomplishing my goals, which are defined for my priorities or my strategies, then I either say I've got a people problem, I got a process problem, or I got a technology problem. And that helps when you start to drill down into assessing my success and failures. So how do you use these strategies? Is you leverage the power of the team to determine the approaches to achieve. So again, we have our team, we all come together, we say, here are our priorities, and then the next question is, how will we accomplish them? And typically there's a lot of ideas, a lot of strategies that you can do. At the end of the day, you want to get that nailed down to just a few that you're going to focus on and execute. You define the actions associated with the strategies. I call those tactics. So my strategies that roll out, then if I have tactical elements that have to go that, I call those tactics. But at the end of the day, I've discovered that trying to argue or define it, strategy, the tactic, is really not worth the energy. So I let those become synonymous. And if you just drive out the strategy and the tactic and you execute both, the successes will still come. And then you define appropriate strategy goals. So we're going to talk about goals, and every priority should have a goal, but not all strategies actually have to have a goal. And so what's important, though, is good strategies that can be measured, can be quantified, should have goals, only so that you have easy assessment on the execution of the strategy. Again, it's the dashboard that gives you that. And who owns this? Well, each strategy must have an owner, but it does not have to be the priority owner. Actually, you would prefer, if you have a strong team of A players, as a functional leader, I would actually prefer other members of my team to own those strategies. They own them, they nurture them, they track them, they make sure they're being executed to. And the priority owner, who owns the priority, is able to do more with less. He's been leverage the power of his leadership. So strategies, how do I get the priority accomplished? Some examples. So we talked about a priority for sales was increase revenue. But what is a strategy? What is an approach? What is a method I could increase revenue? Well, I could expand into another region. Yeah, that's a good one. I could increase my sales team, strategically. I could go from 10 salespeople to 20 salespeople. Okay, that's excellent. Right? That's a great strategy. Let's go for it. I could add new products. Those things are strategic methods, approaches to increase revenue. Increase leads. If I'm in marketing, that was my marketing priority. What could I do? Well, I could launch pay-per-click on Google. That's a strategy that I could implement in my marketing plan to increase leads. I could engage a PR firm. That's a strategy. If I want to increase the cash flow, inflow for my finance priority, I could invoice faster. So my strategy is to invoice faster. So I'm going to implement systems and process procedures to invoice faster. Be physically fit. It could be a priority of your health. So what am I going to do? What are my strategies? And then these are two that I use. These is my strategies for my physical fitness is I'm going to have sufficient cardio exercise and I'm going to eat a clean diet. So those are strategies. And what's interesting about them, is in the next one, we'll talk about goals. The goals bring back the qualification of that strategy and the quantification of that strategy. Sufficient cardio exercise, what does that mean? And then in the goals, it brings it back with some integrity, something to it. If I want to have financial freedom, well, what are my strategies? What could I do to have financial freedom? Well, I could execute a budget. I could eliminate bad debt. Okay, fantastic, right? Now realize, these are strategies. And again, this is where we get down into the difference between strategies and tactics, because if I want to execute a budget, then what would be a tactic? Right? A tactic of that would be, well, I must create a budget. I must track a budget. I must review a budget, right? And I'm calling those tactical elements. Again, a lot of people get down and they start to confuse those. It's not worth the battle, the energy. Whatever works for you, it's fine. At the end of the day, what we want to do is define our priority, say how we're going to get there, and our goals are going to tell us if we make it or not. So wrapping up strategies, strategies can be creative and have various levels of risk. That's what makes them great. We're going to expand into a new market. Fantastic. That's creative. And it's also risky. If we fail, it's okay, because we want to be a fail forward type of organization. And what we're counting on is we actually have other strategies that are more mature or less risky or high probability of success that are helping us as well in the success of our priority. So we're not betting all the eggs on that one high risk strategy, because we actually have other strategies that do it, but it allows us to take risks. That's one of the things I love about the priorities and the strategies perspective, is that it allows an organization to be risky without being reckless. The strategies developed create a roadmap to help guide the steps for how the priority will be accomplished. That's the piece. I want to accomplish these things. Is my priorities, how I'm going to do it. Each strategy should have a contribution to the priority, of course. That's how they should be derived. The results will be measured by the quality of the strategy and how well you executed it. So if I miss priority goals, I have goals for my priority. If I miss them, I got to ask myself a hard question. Did I have bad strategies, or did I have bad execution of my strategies? Very, very important. That becomes the nut. When I want to do a postmortem on my period and I was unsuccessful, were the strategies flawed or my execution of the strategies flawed? Big strategies are probably priorities that can happen sometimes, and they can move up and down. You don't have to overthink that one. They take care of themselves. Strategies do not contain numbers. They're not goals. Strategies are the methods. We're going to have numbers in our goals. 3 to 5 strategies per priority is a good balance, because it allows you to have appropriate focus to the resources you have. If you wake up and you have 10, 15 different strategies for priority, then you have too much dispersion of resources. Strategies break down into tactics. Tactics are aligned to the activities that result in successful execution of strategy. The steps, each tactic should have an owner, date. This is just basic project management at this point. Gantt chart, Microsoft project, whatever. Here are my tactics. Here's who's owned it. Here's what it's going to do. Tactics are typically binary. Did I get it done or not? And as I say today, I say strategies and tactics can be interchangeable. Preferably not, but they can be. 5 years ago, I was more adamant, got to be separate. But I get older, more mellow, and you realize some things are not worth changing. So strategy is very, very powerful. Okay, we're going to continue on because we're on a roll. This is good stuff. And we're going to wrap up the priority, strategies, goals with the goals section. The goals are the glue that brings it all together. Dreams don't come true, goals do. Love that, great. And then first step, set goals. Second step, make shit happen, right? Just go for it, right? And a lot of people, successful people, they're goal oriented. So that's not the hard part. What they're weak at is creating a systematic approach of being goal oriented and being successful with their goals. And when they are not successful, understanding why they were not successful. That is what the PSG process is about. When you're young in your business career, your life career, you say, oh, I got to do a business plan. And a business plan says I got to have goals. And right, you do the spreadsheet and you say, okay, well, I have $0 in revenue now. In 5 years, I'll be $100 million. Great. And you back it all the way up in your fancy spreadsheet. But at the end of the day, that's not how you're going to get there, right? You got to understand what is important, what are my priorities, what are my strategies, and what am I doing to execute on those strategies so that I get successful. All that things, I call those the sum of actions. If I know the sum, if I know all the actions required for a preferred or defined outcome, if I know the actions, then all I have to do is execute on each of those actions, and I know the outcome is guaranteed. So it's a very powerful concept, and it is intrinsically embedded in the PSG process. So goals, what are they? Well, most people should understand goals. They get goals. They may not be worth a damn at executing them, but they get them. The goals are a desired result for a measurable outcome that includes numbers and deadlines. Now, you can read that, and I advise you should make it bold. Desired result for measurable outcome that includes numbers and deadlines. I see so many people go in and I sit and they say, okay, so do your goals. There's either no numbers or no deadlines, typically both. All right. And what they ended up creating, instead of a goal, they just created another strategy or a hope. And if it doesn't have a number and it doesn't have a deadline, then it's not a goal. And I assure you that will be a challenge you have. Just go back. It's an easy test. All goals must be SMART. We've seen this SMART for my whole career. Be specific, measurable, action-oriented, realistic, and time budget constrained. Assessing a goal must be binary. So you don't want the subjective perspective of goal management. It's either I accomplished the goal or I did not accomplish the goal. It's yes, no. If I did not accomplish it, and how I know is I'm going to have this number by this date. Do I have that number? Yes, no. Yes, great. No, why? Did I have bad strategies or bad execution to my strategies? Oh, okay, I see. Why have them? It provides that objective and measurable approach to assess performance and progress towards that defined priority and strategy. Again, remember, we can have goals for our priorities. Our priorities must have goals. Our strategies can have goals. How to use them is each priority should be assessed able to be assessed for success, right? The goals provide the assessment or the test of success. I said, this is important for me. I want to accomplish it. The goal tells me, am I achieving what I set forth to do? If my priority is to be healthy, and I say one of the elements of health is a certain weight, then that goal is what gives me a quantifiable perspective. Am I approaching healthiness as defined by my priority? As an easy example that everyone gets. Communicate the goals to everyone. Drives transparency and alignment. This is scary. Big, scary stuff is when you tell people your goals. So, you keep your personal goals yourself, but in business, everyone should see their goals. They should be realistically tracking their goals and communicating them. That drives transparency. That drives alignment. That drives accountability, which is the number one reason why people don't like to do that and should be here. Right? And then who owns them? Well, each goal is owned either by the priority owner or the strategy owner. Priority owner is the functional lead. The strategy owner can be people, the team members within, but they own that goal. And that goal should be something that they care about a lot. And with the deadlines and the perspective of what it is, they're the ones tracking it. They should always know if they're on goal, off goal. If they're off goal, what are they doing about it? If they're on goal, that's great. So the goals are, how do I know it was accomplished? So examples, easy, increase revenue. Product line X revenue, X $1 million by a certain date. So product line, revenue, dollar, date. I have a number and I have a date. Increase cash inflow. Have X millions of dollars in liquid assets by a date. I have a number and a date. Easy. When that date hits, I can look at this and say yes, no. Be physically fit. Have a weight by date. One of mine is, I use more BMI, but I have a BMI number personally, and I say, here's my BMI number by this date. But I do for my clean diet where I had is I say eat less than 100 grams of carbs per day. And so I count the carbs, the food intake that I have. And my goal every day is to hit 100 grams of carbs per day, which is very, 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 very hard for me. It turns out everything's got a carb in it. But anyway, it is what it is. But I track them and I know where they are. And then days that I'm above that, I know, and I have to challenge myself. What was it? And when I'm below, I have to check. Same thing with cardio, which is not here. I have 300 minutes per week of what I call intensity. Garmin watch, it measures my intensity minutes, 300 minutes. So I know every day where I am all the time. So I break it out. I make a plan for the week and I execute to the plan. If I'm short, I know I have to make it up. But anyway, point is, so Monday through Sunday, I have to have 300 intensity minutes. Monday through Friday, it's 500 grams of carbs per day. Saturday is my free day. I eat everything, and then I start back on Sunday. So, personal finance goal: $0 credit card debt by date. Number date. I can say it. You'll hear it. I assure you, when you do your goals, you will skip it and then come back. And if I look at it, I'll ask you number date. Goals are the results, or how do I know I got it done? Goals without numbers and dates should be challenged. Assessing the achievement of a goal should not be debatable. There are goals for both priorities and strategies. You should be able to easily track the progress toward the goal. This is so critical. It should be highlighted. A lot of people that say, well, I'll set this goal, and then you get into it and they say, okay, well, how are we doing? I don't know, don't know how to measure that. Or it's a pain in the ass to measure it. Or I got to run 14 different reports to get it. So I'm only going to do that once a month, right? So in that situation, you want to break that goal down or change goals or implement systems and processes in the future, priorities, so that you can track it. Today's world, we have so many tools with real-time dashboard. It's just a beautiful world. 20 years ago, we did all this stuff in Excel. It was a pain in the ass. You ran queries, you updated it, you did the charts. Today, dashboards are a beautiful thing. So you really don't have an excuse. Just be smart about what am I going to track, and then you will make it transparent. I do highly, you want to avoid that end of period assessing, right? If you have a quarterly goal, you don't wait until the end of the quarter. Okay, let's see how we did. Oh, we missed it. That's dangerous, right? So set a period. It's important for the ability to modify the strategies so that you can affect the outcome. 1 to 3 goals per priority is a good balance. People hate goals and will resist putting numbers and dates. Cannot emphasize that enough. They want to believe they don't hate goals, right? Because they want to believe it's their goal-oriented people. But how they offset that is not putting numbers and dates. All goals have to be accepted and owned by the team. Well, this is team leadership here. The leader can't just sit there and start assigning goals. Okay, Bill, you're going to go and you're going to run a mile in 3 minutes. We're going to set that the goal, right? It has to be a collaborative team element. If the team created the priorities, the team created the strategies, the team has to create and believe in the goals. A good leader is pushing his team to the edge. He knows where that bleeding edge is, so that we're always growing and we're evolving. And if you're a growing organization, you should have a culture for that. A players want to grow. If you have too many C players, they'll always be clawing it back and making excuses. Eliminate the excuses in this process. When missing the goals, then assess the strategies or the execution. It's got to be one of them. Goals are powerful. I have the supplement. You're more welcome to take a shot of this. The way I put this in when I do these, some people need more detailed goal supplement training. It's here. You can go through it. There's a ton of books on this that do a lot better job than I can, but it's just a smart element of goals. So we're wrapping it up here. We're going down the summary lane here. So priorities, strategies, goals. Priorities provide the focus for the team. What is important to accomplish? Strategies provide the plan or approach to achieve the priority, how to accomplish it. Goals provide the metrics to assess success of the priorities and strategies. How do I know it was accomplished? It doesn't get easier than that. And as simple as this is a very powerful framework to allow organizations and individuals to achieve and be successful. Focus, transparency, alignment, accountability, engagement, thinking, intellectualization, processes, planning, all this is in here in a structured approach to help people and organizations be successful. Here's an example. There's various spreadsheets. I'll just throw this in here. You can cut this out and build your own. There's a ton of tools that do it. Asana, you got your project planning tools. There's just so many tools out there to do it. If you just think about this as a framework, what are my priorities? What are my strategies? What are my goals? And then manage it however your organization likes to do that. It works great. I work with one company. We use Microsoft Teams. And so we create, a board with a Kanban board with the priority. And then I have all of my strategies and goals within it. It's very cloud-based. It's organized. It's structured. Or you can go down to Excel and have shared spreadsheets. A lot of opportunities. Here's some good examples here. You can pull these out. I like this one. This is about, if I'm an HR, maybe I'm an HR, VP of HR, which is, you get into the, the softer functionals. They say, well, what was my priority? And this is a real one, actually. Have a positive, happy workplace culture. Then what are my goals for that priority? Well, how do I know that I have a positive, happy workplace culture? So that's an easy one. It's a great priority. That means a lot of things to a lot of different people. However, the priority goal is where the team comes together and we say, this is what we say defines a positive, happy workplace culture. Be recognized as a top 10 workplace by, ABC, Atlanta Business Chronicle, or whatever for 2020. Have employee retention greater than 90% at all times in 2020. Have all employees rated as A or B players by their team and leaders by, 6/15. So these are three clear, defined priority goals that we're saying if we accomplish these three things, then we have a positive, happy workplace culture. Another company with a totally different philosophy of things could have the same priority, but they measure it differently, right? Maybe they don't care about employee retention, or they have other things that they want, or they want, whatever makes them feel good. It doesn't matter as long as you have a quantifiable goal to the priority. And then I just break down, what are my strategies to have this positive, happy workplace? Communicate effectively with all team members, train and assess team members, master the criteria and implement a plan for that workplace recognition. I'm saying I need to do these three things in order to accomplish my priority of having a positive, happy workplace culture. And that way I can get my PG, my priority goals. And then you can see the goals under here for those strategies, right? These are called strategy goals, right? I like this: master the criteria and implement a plan. Have primary criteria determined by 1/30/120, right? Simple goal. At the end of that date, do we have all the criteria we need to be in a workplace recognition program? Okay. I got a deadline to apply for the award, right? There's a date. Super easy. And then you got your tactics down here. This is a great example of a priority, a strategy, a goal that has a positive impact on the organization that would be hard to get accomplished without a structure, without a framework. It wouldn't even probably be considered. And then what that does is that gets organizations like HR, they focus more on the tactical element of HR, the administration, the benefits, the payroll, and they ignore the cultural piece of an organization, which culture is paramount to the success of an organization. Culture eats strategy. Here's one, and a good example in life. You can pull this one out and look at it. There's a similar one that I use. So where are your sources of priorities? Of course, in business, all your functionals or your departments, marketing, sales, operations, finance, accounting, HR, right? They can all have their own PSGs. You can have them for your customers, for your markets, your competition. That's what makes it. It's a framework, so you can apply it to a lot of things. You can do it to teams or projects. You start a new project, create a PSG for that project. What are the priorities for it? What are my strategies? How am I known successful at it? In life, career, health, finances, easy, right? And then use parking lots to capture and save priorities. Again, what you want to have are a lot of priority ideas. And you don't want to lose them, save them. And as you execute on priorities, as you start to accomplish them, then it provides you the resources and the confidence and the ability to bring new priorities in so that you can continue to grow and evolve. And a little tip: if you get stuck in an area, and this is typically true in life, like health or finance, start with the goals and work back. So you say finance, if you want to, I don't know what my priority is, but you might say something like, well, I want to have $1 million in the bank. Okay, well, that's a good one. I want to have $1 million in the bank by this date. Okay, now the goal. Well, let's start working backwards. Why do I want that to be that goal? At the end of the day, you'd say, well, so I have enough money to do what I want. Okay. Well, I call that financial freedom. Oh, okay. That's my priority, financial freedom. And then we just got to mess with that middle piece, the strategy piece, which is the hard part. How am I going to accomplish this? What am I going to do? And, you build that out. And my priorities, my strategies, goals, they start to fill into a framework. Rhythm and data, I just add this in because I love business and I see this, but rhythm and accessible data are required to make the PSGs effective. I talked about that. If you don't have the data and you don't review it regularly, rhythmically, and then you're just, you're hurting yourself. You don't want to get to the end of a period, assess the goals and say, yeah, I won or lost. You want to know as you're going through so you can adjust and adapt. Do I have the right strategies, the wrong execution, or the wrong strategies? Review and update the PSGs, corporates 1-2 times a year, depending on the rate of growth. Fast growth company, I used to use a quarters a year when you're a fast growth. So, every quarter represents a year in normal time. So that's what I cared about, was quarterly growth. A more mature company or slower growth, years are fine. And your functionals, quarterlies are great. It kind of gives you 4 resets a year. And the teams need a tracking system, something, Excel or online tools, etc. So what are the challenges of PSG? It's a great slide. Fascinating. Most people who hear this, they see this, they get it, man. This makes a lot of sense, Ron. Piece of cake. Great. All right, go forth, do. and oddly enough, it's 50-50 who actually adopt this for over a long period of time for success. And then when they're not adopting, they just make up a lot of reasons, excuses why I'm too busy, it's too complicated, or whatever. For a lot of different excuses, most of them are weak. It requires leaders to make decisions about what is important and then commit to that decision. That's one of the first rocks. Is a leader, a president, a CEO, a VP has to tell you what he thinks is important. And he has to write it down. He has to define his priorities, and then he has to commit to it. And that gets to be tough. It goes back to that accountability because he has to start to plan and predict the future, which is what a leader should be doing. Where are we going? How are we going to get there? And that's what this PSG does. It requires time to think and develop. A lot of people, they don't want to, they want to be, it's a lot easier, again, to work in the business. It's a lot easier to be reactive in a business. PSGs require a proactive management style. You have to say, this is where we're going to go, and therefore we have to invest that time. At wherever you are in that level, the higher the level of the organization, the more you should be working on it. As a C-level person or exec level, you should be 80% working on the business, 20% working in the business. And as I move down, in a director level, mid-level, I call that 50-50. Amazingly, directors have a hard time with 50-50. They're typically 80% in the business, 20% on the business, and that 20% is when they're being forced to do it. Challenges of PSG is it requires transparency and accountability. You have to make your goals smart. Again, having that data that's available, trackable, accessible is very, very important for your goals. Maintaining focus on the priorities and strategies after the planning. This is where data and rhythm come together. Personally, I implement these into my weekly exec meetings because I think it's important that it should be driving the agenda, for your meetings. It should be what you're talking about. We said these priorities were important. We should be talking about those priorities. The strategies, bring it down. How are we doing? Look at our goals each week, ideally, because I said that's what's important. If I'm focused on something that's not a part of a priority, I should challenge, why am I doing it? Either I have the wrong priorities or I should not be spending any energy on that element. You avoid folks going back to doing what they've been doing, and then you need interactive dashboards. And it requires that rhythmic reviewing, which I beat up. So it requires, here's the nut, requires success-driven, disciplined leadership to maximize the full potential of the approach. Because a lot of companies, a lot of people, a lot of leaders, they can't get by doing what they do, which is reactive leadership, which is typically a disservice, and long-term success is typically not there. So the what are the outcomes? This is what you want. More people doing the right things right. Especially as a business leader, I want my people in the right place where they're passionate, excited, and I want them doing the right things right. Because just doing things does not help me. It increases the efficiency of the resources by focusing on what is important. All organizations have a finite amount of resources, energy, time and dollars. And so where you allocate those resources become important. And this allows you to know where to put those resources, as opposed to A lot of organizations, they do 50 different things and nothing gets done. Here, we only will do 3 things over this quarter, and all 3 of them will get done. If I do that 4 times a year, good things start to happen. And if I can do that team by team by team, then I start to have an exponential impact on my organization. Morale is better with clarity and communication, right? It goes back to the culture. If you believe in culture, if you want happy people, they need clarity, where we're going to go, and they need communication. How are we doing? Everyone understanding their role in the organization through their PSGs provides that clarity and that communication, and people realize they're part of something bigger than themselves. They get excited, they're passionate, and we all work together as a team. The organization actually gets more important things accomplished, as I said, instead of progressing through too many initiatives that never get done. So that's the what. All right, well, questions. So, virtual webinar in the middle of a pandemic. I don't know, we won't have these, but my email is ron@ronhollis.com, bottom right. Feel free to drop me a line anytime. Love critiquing. Hey, Ron, you talk too fast, you talk too Southern, you're not clear here. I love that. Helps me. My objective is to make this better.